Hello, I'm Reverend Ryan Pulley, and we are the Soul Evolution Collaborative. And this is Stripped Down Sunday, where we unchurch your Sunday experience. So, welcome. We're thrilled to have this time with you and to offer some inspiration, some upliftment, and hopefully a new take on life that is uniquely Soul Evolution Collaborative. We have stripped down your Sunday mornings to offer you this kind of streamlined experience that fits your needs. We had the strong desire to bring an updated message of inspiration to the world at a time when we all need it the most. And so the Soul Evolution Collaborative is dedicated to personal transformation and communal evolution. So 2 quick things before we jump in today to our topic of Embrace the Now. Number 1, everything you need to know about this community, Soul Evolution Collaborative, is on our website, and that can be found at soulevolutioncollaborative.org. I'll put that link in the chat at the end, and so you can jump on over there and check us out. Feel free to open up another tab and tool around there while we're doing this also. So, number 2, it's communities with missions like ours that really focus on bringing change to the world. And so we are actively trying to create a new earth and ways of life that benefit everyone. And so if you are in any way able to help continue this mission, we gratefully welcome your donations and your support. And so donations can be made at soulevolutioncollaborative.org. And I will post that link in the chat at the very end. All right, so here we go. So today's topic is Embrace the Now. So if you have been in spiritual communities or anywhere for that matter, you have probably heard someone talking about the importance of being present or the now moment or embrace the now. So I guess today's really going to be no different. I will admit, especially when times are super tough, this whole idea of embracing the now really kind of has me wanting to head toward the door, at any given point. Our now may not be exactly what we want. So sometimes when we hear this topic, especially in spiritual communities, embrace the now, for me, sometimes I feel like, oh, there are some parts of my now at any given point that I don't necessarily want to embrace. So I kind of want to hide in the corner when we start talking about that. But hopefully today will give us kind of a new perspective on this idea of embracing the now and how we can do this in times that are amazing and in times that are a little challenging for us. So it's always important, I think, to start with a definition. So let's look at the definition of embrace and see if this is going to help us out a little bit. Embrace is accept or support a belief, theory, or change, circumstance, event, willingly, enthusiastically. Yeah, that definition didn't help me much either, especially with that word enthusiastically. I mean, I bet we can all think of a lot of things in our life right now that when we talk about our now moment, that would be really hard to even have a forced grin in reaction to, much less enthusiasm. So although kind of enthusiasm for me doesn't necessarily speak to like this excited, yay, football fan sort of understanding, but for me, enthusiasm speaks more of wholeheartedness. So how can we bring our whole selves to life in this kind of like enthusiastic way? Like I said, not like in a rah-rah way, but like in a, hey, I'm going to bring my whole self, my whole passionate self, all my strengths and all my challenges, and I'm just going to bring it to life. So for me, when I think about enthusiasm, I think about wholehearted energy. But let's back up a little bit and let's focus. For me, I think the key in this definition is willingness. And so I think that this is where we really can get the ball rolling in embracing this idea of willingness. Now, life has its ups and downs, like we've talked about, and enthusiasm, especially the rah-rah type of enthusiasm, is a little bit of a challenge, at least for me it is. But this idea of willingness, and sometimes it's the willingness to be willing Sometimes we're so far removed from the willingness, we just have to be able to kind of point ourselves in that direction. But I think that willingness, this idea that says, hey, I recognize that I want to look at life differently. I want to look at myself differently. I want to interact with individuals differently. And I want to set those intentions. And so when we begin to set these intentions, that's kind of a willingness energy. So even that creates this like one step forward of like, okay, this is how I want to show up regardless of what's happening on the outside, regardless of my now on the outside. I want to be willing to make these steps in this direction. And so for me, it's that willingness. It kind of opens us up to see our now, to see what's in front of us from a whole new perspective. So how can we move in the direction of embracing or even being willing to embrace? Since we're talking about willingness, this now moment. How can this movement totally change not only our perspective, but our life and how we show up to life? And so, a talk always has to have like 3 key elements. Well, this is going to be no different than that. So let's look at 3 key things. Now, I've never been really good at math. But what came into my mind is this like equation. One thing plus another thing equals embrace. And so let's look at those things. So 3 things. Look plus get curious plus shake equals embrace. Now, I bet you're wondering like what the world that means. Well, hopefully we're going to get to that. So let's start. Our first piece of this equation of embracing is 1, look. So too often, and I can only speak for myself, but too often I take my life for granted and I kind of move in this autopilot sort of way. Have you ever, driven to work or driven anywhere that you've driven a lot and gotten there and you're like, how in the world did I get here? So the same happens with our lives. We often function in this autopilot mode, these default ways of thinking, because these are the ways we've always reacted, the ways we've always responded, the way we've always done things. And so we get to a point where we're like, how did I get here? And so this part of embracing the now is being really intentional about just looking at what's in front of us and being present to our life now. For me, I don't know if you've ever lived this way, especially when you have something really exciting happening, like say I'm going to go on vacation for 5 days or in 5 days. So I move through the next 5 days of like, if I can just get it to Friday, And so then I miss what happens on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because I'm trying to get to Friday. That vacation, that escape from whatever's going on, that break from life. And so when we operate in those modes of not really looking each and every day what's in front of us, we begin to live these kind of mountaintop to mountaintop to mountaintop experiences. And so our life becomes this living to the weekend, living to the vacation, living to the next mountaintop. And then we miss everything in between. And what we know about life is that the juiciness, the depth of life happens in those in-betweens. Now, of course, those mountaintops, or those vacations, or those peak experiences of our lives are amazing. But what really kind of shifts and guides the direction of our lives happen in the in-between. So if we can really begin to create by design and not by default, then we begin to, in essence, create new defaults. When I set intention that I want to react in a different way to a circumstance, whether it be stress or an individual or something, that I want to show up differently, then I began to be able to create the experiences, to create these new default ways of being, these new default ways of responding. And then it kind of shifts the whole perspective of our life, and that we can be able to kind of sit in this moment. And, Eckhart Tolle says that it's not uncommon for people to spend their whole lives waiting to start living. And so that's the goal in this look piece, just to be present and not to be living for Friday or living for the weekend, but just to be present in this moment. So just to look. First, just to look and observe the situations, the responses, the things of our life. The second piece of the equation is curiosity. So we have look plus curiosity. So I think for me that curiosity is one of our the most powerful of spiritual practices. It really just cracks it open for me. It brings us into the only moment that ever was, is, or will be, and it's this present moment, that eternal now moment that we hear people speak of, because life only happens right now. So if we aren't living in the present moment, where are we? Where are we living? So when we're curious, when we approach the experiences of our life with wonder, we become alive and directly in contact with life itself. And then we can go beyond just what we're seeing or experiencing. And we can really look at the deeper meaning, the underlying message, the guidance. And it's in then that we can see that life is not happening to us per se, but through us. When we get really curious, we get curious about our reactions, we get curious about our beliefs, we get curious about just, these existential thoughts of the world. We could just be curious. And so it's really hard not to fall victim to creating stories around situations that happen in our life. But if we get really curious about it, then we can step back from kind of the in the moment experience and really approach our life with an observer's mind. And when we can do that, we can see things more clearly. And, life, we are not victims to life. And each experience is part of the whole. And we talk a lot about wholeness at Soul Evolution Collaborative. You may be tired of hearing about it, but I think wholeness is where it's at. To understand that each experience of our life is a part of the whole. There's not the, yay, I like these things. This is what wholeness is. And these things I don't really like very much. These are really crappy things that have happened to me, or interactions or experiences. We're going to leave that over here. That's not part of the whole. That's not the way it works. And so we can get really curious about our experiences and our feelings and our relations to them, our relations to one another, our relations to this divine presence, then we can really see that it's all part of the whole. And when we can see that, we can approach our now moment from a whole different perspective. And so number 3, so we've got look, we've got curiosity, and number 3 is shake. Now, this is not like a wiggle shake. No, I mean, you can do that if you want it. That makes you remember it better. You can do a little wiggle or a little shake. But for me, shake means shaking off this mistaken identity, that we are not what we think. We are not what we feel. We are not the circumstances of our life. That the essence of who we are is so much deeper than that. And so, we've been really conditioned to identify ourselves as our thoughts or our feelings or our sensations, or we've been conditioned to identify ourselves with what we do or who we're with or how much money we may have, or, all a number of these external things. And so when we do that, when our identity becomes this external experience, then it's really, when circumstances come into our lives that really bump up against that identity, then we kind of want to resist it. We want to resist this bumping up, resist this kind of questioning of our identity that we've established. And when we do that, we try to make things different than what they are. So you see that energy of bumping up against when our identity becomes so wrapped up in these external things, which we all do it. It's just a normal way. It's just normal. I'm not trying to make it wrong, but it's just kind of a normal way of how we've been conditioned to do that. And so then we become resist anything that speaks against that. And so it creates this idea that we are what we feel and we need to change it, or we are what's happening to us, so we need to change it. Because, there are challenges in life, and it's this mistaken identity and our resistance to it that really creates this idea of struggle and suffering. And when we have things in our life that happen to us that we want to change, we figure, oh no, I need to control this. I need to fix this. This doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel good. I need to, something needs to change. And I become very clinchy. Like, no, this is my identity. I am going to hold on to this, and with white knuckle. And so, if we can really pay really close attention to those areas in our life where we're clenching, we're holding on to, whether it's identities, whether it's old ways of being or belief systems that we've always believed this way. We're not going to change. We're not going to be open to anything new. This is who I am. This is what I believe. If we exercise that spiritual power of curiosity in those areas, it really can bring to the surface some of these opportunities to unclench. And this is easier said than done. I mean, I'm having, in this moment, even areas in my own life that I'm really having to take a really close look at of like, why am I holding so hard in this moment? Why am I trying to control this moment? What is it about this circumstance? And so when we get curious about these areas that we're clenching in, we can really realize, it's because of this underlying belief of, unworthiness or not being good enough, or all these underlying beliefs, and that we can really look at those things. And then when we do that, we can relax in those areas. And when we can relax, we can have our arms wide open to embrace the now, that we're not trying to control the now, we're not trying to fix the now, we're not trying to squeeze our own idea of what should be done in the now, but we're just embracing the now, not in a kind of a around the neck sort of embracing, but just a relaxed embrace. And so, Einstein says you cannot solve a problem from the same consciousness that created it. And so when we realize that who we are is this consciousness, that it's not this external, whatever we've created, these stories that we create about ourselves or stories that we create about each other, when we become aware of that, when we become the observer, then rather using our minds to control life, we can use it to become curious about life. And curiosity creates this spaciousness that opens us up to greater possibilities and things that we never thought possible. So that's the three parts of the equation. We've got look, we've got get curious, and we've got shake, which means shaking off that mistaken identity. And that equals a greater ability to embrace the now. And so Charlotte Becca, a Zen teacher, said that joy is exactly what's happening, minus our opinion of it. So once again, this curiosity about embracing the now and observing what is. It enables us to be present to what we are experiencing before we think about it, to make up stories about it, to identify with it, just to be present with this focused energy of curiosity. Do you see how curiosity just kind of weaves its little self throughout this whole thing? Because it is about that. And so the opportunity is to turn inward towards our experiences and challenges and be curious about them, rather than just distracting ourselves from them or trying to change them. And so this allows us to access a deeper knowledge, a deeper knowing by looking directly what is happening in the now moment. This creates a further spaciousness to move through it and create space to relate to our experiences rather than relating from them. And you see the difference when we can see from this observer mind, we can kind of see our experiences without fully identifying with them. Instead of living and reacting from these experiences, we can actually just respond to them. And so when we change the way we look at things, the things that we look at change. And we've heard that a lot. And man, isn't that true? I mean, it sounds cliche, but it is. When we change the energy that we bring to life, then things come into our awareness that we never thought possible. So this idea of looking, this idea of being curious, this idea of kind of shaking off these external identifications, this really is shifting the way we look at things. And I think if we can be mindful and intentional about those three aspects, we'll find that we're better able to meet the circumstances of our lives and our interaction with others and our own, spiritual life with this sense of curiosity. We become curious about life. It transforms our experience of it when we stop trying to fix it. Instead, become present to it, and we become in alignment with it. And this only happens in the now. We can't do this yesterday, and we can't do this tomorrow. We can only do this now. And so when we can accept, when we can embrace, doesn't mean that we have to like it, but accepting it and embracing it. And I like how Eckhart Tolle says, this is one of my favorite quotes, and sometimes when I have challenges, I look at this. He says that whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it. Always work with it, not against it. In essence, making friends and an ally, not your enemy. And this energy will transform your life. So this doesn't mean that we have to love everything, but if we have this gentle curiosity, this gentle acceptance, this gentle understanding, and approach life in this as if we chose this present moment, then it infuses this energy of choice. It infuses this energy of curiosity in each and every aspect of our life. And so then we can fully begin this new default of embracing the now, this new way of looking at life, this new way of looking at this now moment. And what's really amazing about this idea, and we talked a lot about embracing the now today, but the one key piece that I didn't really mention is that we don't have to do this alone. And that's the beauty of community. And that's the beauty of the embracing of community. That it is each and every one of us strive in our own lives to embrace the now, strive in our own lives to be curious about our life, to strive in our own lives to move from this default way of being into a more creative and intentional way of being. As we do this, we don't have to do it alone. And so that's the beauty of communities like the Soul Evolution Collaborative, that we can do it together. We can sometimes get it wrong together, and we can amazingly support and rejoice in our triumphs together. And so that is just our greatest honor here at Soul Evolution Collaborative, is to be able to embrace the now with all of you.